Hey, girlfriend. What's up? Oh my gosh, 2 weeks in a row, and we are connecting on a Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time instead of on a Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Um, Things on my end have just been absolutely crazy. I'm in transition. I think I kind of mentioned this in our last live stream before that I am actually moving on from the role that I'm currently in into a new role, specifically into practice, private practice as an employment lawyer here in Toronto, here in Ontario. So that has been really keeping me super busy lately, hence why we haven't necessarily been as married to our schedule as on top of things as we usually are here on Financial Hair Rocks. But all of that should be fine for Friday coming up next. I think the transitionary period of things has now come to an end, and back to the kind of like the regular type schedule that we're usually accustomed to. Girlfriend, if you don't know who I am, my name is Lavinia Latham, and I am the founder of Fine Natural Hair Rocks. This YouTube channel is all about helping you grow long and strong fine natural hair. That's something that I've been able to achieve in my own hair care journey. It's something that I really struggled with along the way. And it's something that now that I do understand it, I'm dedicated to helping others understand it because really and truly, those struggles, that journey, full of like challenges and mistakes, you don't have to go down that road, right? Hopefully, you don't have to. There are other natural hair gurus here on YouTube, but there aren't a lot of people who talk about fine natural hair, specifically fine strands. Especially if you are someone who has highly textured tresses in the ways that I do. So if that is you and you are interested in learning how to thicken up your strands, then today's YouTube video is absolutely for you because we are going to be talking about how to thicken fine natural hair naturally. Hey Patricia, what's up? Thank you so much, girlfriend, for just changing on up your visit to Fine Natural Hair Rocks for this particular live stream. A video did go out yesterday with the update that I was stuck in traffic. Toronto traffic is insane. And yeah, one little accident just changes the world on up for the worse, not the better. Hi, Stefan. What's up, Cyrus? Joseph. Thank you so much for popping on in. I really do appreciate the support. Hey, M. Lau. Howdy to you, too. I super appreciate this. JB, my hair seems thick in its natural state. As soon as I blow dry or straighten, I look like I've got one strand. Yes, that is 100% a hallmark of having fine natural strands. It looks massive in its curly state. You straighten it up, as you just said, you blow it out, and now you have nothing. So if that's you, then that definitely is an indicator that you've got fine natural strands. My little co-host is not being the best of co-hosts right now. Casper's with us today, but he's doing his thing. So let's hop into this. We do talk about how to thicken fine natural strands quite often here on Fine Natural Hair Rocks. That is something that's very important to us as fine naturals. If you've got fine natural hair, it's because each individual strand is fine in nature. It's not that your whole head is thin. Thinness is different than fineness. You can have thin hair that has fine strands, and you can have thin hair that has thick strands. Now, oftentimes, a lot of people will kind of confuse the two, but having thinness and having fine strands, they're not the same thing. Darlene, I finally caught the live. Yes, and I finally caught you too. This is awesome. JV, yes, that's me. Yeah, see, so we're all kind of in the same boat here. So, tip number one, and I'm going to share 10 of them today. Tip number one, and you hear it all the time, but it's worth mentioning again, which is to protective style. Now, fine naturals absolutely need protective styling more so than any other natural, but it really does matter what type of protective style you're doing. So for me, for the new fall season, the Christmas season, the cold weather, I am going with the most lowest manipulation style possible, most lowest manipulation protective style possible, I should say, and that's wigs. Wigs are very helpful. Minus the stigmatization of like wearing wigs. Like, I don't know if it's fully accepted just yet. I think it is more so now than it was maybe even like 5-10 years ago. But nevertheless, like wigs are very important for fine natural hair to really find itself and to really thicken on up. So for me personally, every time I wear wigs, girlfriend, my hair flourishes. Like that is the reason why if you saw the thumbnail clicking on into today's video, you will see that in the past I had very fine, thin, chewed up ends type hair. And now I've got really thick hair. And it's because I used a lot of wigs. Now, I did stumble across the times, I really did struggle to find what protective style would work the best. I've tried braids, I've tried twists, I've tried cornrows, I've tried weaves, even clip-in extensions. And I can honestly say, after trying pretty much every single protective style under the sun, the best one for my fine strands anyways, and for the goals that I'm trying to achieve with my fine strands as it relates to health and thickness, has been wigs. And the reason why I think that that works the best is because you're literally doing nothing to your hair. You just braid it on up. Either you twist it on up if you're not good at braids, you can cornrow it, you can put in, single braids, whatever it is that your fingers know how to do. Literally put on a wig cap. That piece is very important. Plop on the wig and keep it on moving. No one has to know. No one has to know. And, once this time period of protective styling has passed, you are going to be in a better position with your natural strands to really rock your hair the way you want to rock it. It will be thicker and it will be in a much better place than where it was before. So for me, for this Christmas season, for this holiday season, cold weather season, I'm not going in with the braids. I know a lot of the other naturals are like, this is box braid season, and it absolutely is. But for me personally, box braids are a style. The way they impact fine strands, it's just a style. It's not a protective style. And that's because of the manipulation and also because of the heaviness of the added extension here. Now, can some fine naturals rot box braids and come out with like longer strands? Absolutely. But you do have to understand that if thickness is your goal, that's probably not going to be the best style for you. So I think the protective styling conversation is really important because oftentimes you hear protective style, and it's just a general term, but it really does matter, girlfriend, what type of a protective style you're doing. Sophia Reinbergs, having a happy Christmas, November. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Same to you. Sophia Reinbergs, why do you use wig caps before the wig? Fantastic question, Sophia. So the wig caps before the wigs is really going to help you to, keep your hair away from the manipulation, the rubbing that the wig weave tracks can have on your natural strands. So there's still an issue with the wig cap because the wig cap has a tendency, especially if it's like a nylon one, like that pantyhose material, it has a tendency to kind of like pull the moisture from the hair. But if you're using that, I think it's a better alternative to just plopping the wig on top of fine strands itself. Those wig wefts, so like the wefts that the weave is held onto, and then the cap that the wig is on, unless it's satin in nature, it does tend to rub up on the fine strands and cause breakage. So sometimes you might see that you've got like little wispies at the top. Maybe you've got some breakage or shorter pieces in the crown. Those kinds of things can absolutely happen if you're not using a wig cap. So is a wig cap the best bet? I mean, the current ones on the market, they're not the best. I agree with you completely. But between having no wig cap or a wig cap that's nylon in nature, I would rather, control how much that nylon, that fabric that's pulling moisture from the hair, I'd rather control that with a wig cap than have that same abrasive nature, that same abrasive material on your strands and it's just moving around all over the place. So I hope that helps, Sophia. Darlene, can you just smooth your hair under the wig instead of braids? You absolutely can. You can totally do that. The only issue with that is that you might end up with tangling, you might end up with knotting and matting, especially if you are wearing your hair underneath the wig regularly. I personally wouldn't suggest that. I have absolutely done it in the past when there wasn't enough time. I just wanted to be out like that. And it's okay as a quick fix for the day, but I wouldn't recommend doing that for like weeks on end. Coily Code, hey girlfriend. Hey girlfriend. What's up? I feel like that's almost like, hey Barbie. I don't know if you guys saw the Barbie video. It was movie rather. It was really, really good. Perfect. So that's tip number one. You want a protective style for thickness, but it really does matter what type of a protective style you're going to be using. Tip number two is that you want to try to reduce your washing as much as possible. So if you are developing a regimen, you find that you can get away with stretching your wash day for 1 to 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, whatever the case might be, and you don't have an itchy scalp, you don't have super dry strands, your products are not like building up and causing whiteness and flakes and stuff like that, then you really want to try and stretch out that wash day, because on wash day, it really is a lot of manipulation. So that's true, you're getting hydration and your hair absolutely needs hydration, but there's a balance that needs to be had, right? You want to balance it's that hydration that you're putting back into your strands with the manipulation that you're imparting on your strands, which will ultimately cause fine natural hair breakage. So for me, I did start off in my journey washing my hair every single week, and that was to up the hydration levels. And then once I realized that the hydration levels were heightened, I stopped washing that regularly. I started doing protective styles like the wigs that I mentioned. And that allowed me to really, stretch out my wash days to 2 weeks. Sometimes I even do a full month. Now, if you've got braids in your hair, you've probably gone a full month before. Again, if you're using a lot of like products on your scalp, there's a scent and stuff like that. Of course, you need to wash your hair. But this is kind of like a balancing act, so to speak. So if you know that you're trying to stretch your wash day, then you might be a little bit more lighter handed on your products, which if you've got fine strands, you don't need a ton of product anyways, because it's going to weigh the hair down, right? The other piece to this is the fact that if you are trying to stretch out your wash day, you also want to be aware of what your scalp is doing. So if you're stretching your wash day, you've got an itchy scalp, then it's time to wash your hair. You've got product buildup, it's time to wash your hair. And I know that's a little bit repetitive, but it's really important because I want to really emphasize that I'm not here advocating to not wash your hair even though it needs to be washed. No, I'm advocating to do things to allow your hair to kind of enjoy the protective style with as minimal additional manipulation as possible. So that's going to differ for everyone. If you've been watching Fine Natural Hair Rocks for a while, you will see that I always say do what works for you. So for me, sometimes even my own regimen doesn't work all the time, right? And I've got to change things up, switch things around. So for example, like right now, like I had every intention 2-3 weeks ago to start my hair care regimen with the wigs as protective styling. Well, I actually had an allergic reaction to the synthetic wigs, which, FYI, I'm going to be selling some brand new synthetic wigs from my collection very shortly. So definitely pay attention to Fine Natural Hair Rocks if you want discounted wigs, synthetic. But I had to change things around, right? I had to move away from using the wigs, the synthetic wigs, let my scalp and my skin, especially at the back, calm down and, lean into other types of protective styling instead. So I was wearing a lot of head wraps, a lot of turbans. I was wearing my own natural hair out in low manipulation styles just so that I can get the skin to calm down. Now that the skin has calmed down, I know for me, I can only wear human hair wigs and that's it. Synthetic wigs are absolute no. Something in my skin has changed. So I'm no longer able to do that. So that's kind of an example of like having to switch things around for yourself. And even during that process, when I was experiencing the skin reaction, of course, I wanted to stretch my wash day. So going back to that second point, but the skin situation and the scalp situation was such that I had to wash my hair every other day, every 2 to 3 days. So that's what I mean when I say you've got to be fluid with this stuff. You really got to be aware of what's happening to you and change your situation around accordingly. So anything you hear on Fine Natural Hair Rocks is a guidepost. It's a guiding light. It's not rules or a steadfast rule. And I think that applies to the entire natural hair community as a whole, which would be the reason why you can come here and you hear one thing, you go to another YouTuber, you hear another, maybe you hop on TikTok and there's a third thing again. So I hope that kind of helps a little bit with that. Darlene, are you going to also stretch, revere your hair, braid, and then wig? Fantastic, fantastic point, Darlene. So absolutely, I do find that I gain a lot more length retention when I do stretch my hair with the revere and then braid it on up and leave it alone because the hair is braided in a stretched state. Now, going back to that whole situation when I had to wash my hair every single day, I cannot revere my hair every day. That is far too much manipulation. So in those instances, I really did lean into using water as a means to stretch. So while I'm washing the hair, as I'm done my deep conditioning session, going into the leave-in conditioning and styling, really styling it underneath water, braid it on up and leave it alone. So that's been really, really helpful. That could be a lot of water. So in cases where you don't want to use as much water in your home or in your wherever it is that you reside, then absolutely another option is to use a spray bottle, but make sure your hair is as drenched as possible. Tip number 3 is something that, I haven't done as consistently, but I've heard really good things, and I feel like it can work if you're able to commit to it, and that's scalp massages. Now, scalp massages, you want to make sure you're using the pads of your fingers, not your actual nail bed, or nails rather, because you don't want to be causing breakage while you're doing this, right? This one, a lot of naturals have seen success. I have done it in the past, and I guess I've seen a little bit success, but it's one of those things where it's like it's all anecdotal in nature. I think there is some empirical studies that have been conducted and have proven that scalp massages, because you are increasing the blood flow on your scalp, can actually lead to faster growth and faster, healthier growth. So that's something to consider as well too. The next one on my list would be to consult a hair care specialist. Girlfriend, there have been so many times when we've been here on YouTube, on live, and people come on and they ask about balding or thinning, all those kinds of things. And if you are experiencing balding, you are experiencing thinning, you really should contact a doctor. The doctor that you should be contacting is called a trichologist. So, a trichologist is really going to help you determine what it is that's going on internally that might be causing this balding. So, no, I don't think that coming on YouTube can help. I mean, there are some doctors on YouTube. I think there is a MedTube, similar how they have LawTube. They've got MedTube where there's a bunch of doctors sharing information. And if you are looking for info about that specifically, I would recommend looking for a trichologist here on YouTube to share what they know, because I understand that that's an expensive service, particularly within the US where, you might have to pay, or other countries where you might have to pay for your healthcare out of pocket. But I mean, I think it's worth it to do the research to figure out, like, where exactly your deficiencies lie and like why your hair is thinning out. Because again, thinning is very different than fine strands. That is the issue. The thinning thing is more medical, I would say. Fine strands, that's just your genetical disposition. You have fine hair and that's the end of that. So that's why this information is really for people with fine strands that are trying to really elevate and take advantage as much as possible of the strands that they already have on their head. PSR 076. Yes, scalp massages. I tried to do them at least once a night. I have a scalp massager. That's amazing. Once upon a time, actually, and while watching TV. Yes. So, if you can attach that habit onto something that you do anyways, it's all the more easier to kind of, remember to do. I have had a scalp massager in the past. It just feels good. In addition to it might be working, it might not. I think it might have worked because when I do look at old pictures and I look at new pictures, I am seeing a marked difference in the thickness of my strands. So, or at least the overall appearance of thickness. So I mean, that's worth giving a try. I think it's better than doing nothing, right? Like all we can do is try, and at least this is something that you can try doing to thicken up your strands, or thicken up your fine strands. The fifth tip is gentle hair drying. So, gentle hair drying means air drying if you possibly can. It also means, using lighter settings if you do have devices such as the Revere. Not using the Revere every single week or every single day. I would never recommend that, because, again, it's still manipulation. Any blow dryer on the market is going to be manipulation. And so you really need to control for that, for the health of your strands and for the health of your overall hair as it is, right? So also, in addition to that, like, gentle hair drying means not using towels. So if you are using a regular towel on your strands, and yes, that applies to the microfiber towels too. Like, I've gone ahead, I've tried microfiber towels in the past. There is nothing that works as nicely as a regular t-shirt. And I really do believe that people in the natural hair community don't want to share that particular tip because, I mean, yeah, like, there's nothing to gain financially in selling a t-shirt. Any of your t-shirts in your house will work, right? So I really do believe that you should be using a t-shirt. I use a t-shirt. It soaks the t-shirt through with the water. Like, it's not as absorbent, fine, but I feel like it's absorbent enough for the purposes of fine strands, especially fine natural strands. It's been years. It's actually been years since I've used a regular terry cloth towel on my hair. I will never do it. Microfiber, I remember there was a point where people were saying that microfiber is better than regular towels. It is not. It's actually, I think, worse because it's like the microfiber is going to attract the fine strands in more, intentional ways as opposed to clumping the fine strands together on like a regular towel, now it's attracting itself to your fine strands on this fine microfiber towel. It's just a nightmare. So to avoid all of that, I think your best bet is to just find an old t-shirt, use your t-shirt to dry your hair. It's not as sexy as what's on the market, but I personally think it works better. The next tip that I would have for you is to stay hydrated. And to that point, I'm going to go ahead and hydrate right now because it's extremely important. And I encourage you to do so too. Perfect. So you want to stay hydrated. Staying hydrated is really important. It's important for your body. It's important for your hair. It's important in general to stay hydrated and to make sure that all of the things inside are working properly, which will then give your hair the opportunity to flourish in the ways that you're looking for it to flourish. I'm going to leave that point right there because I think you hear a lot about staying hydrated. The next one that I think has been really, really helpful for me, and I didn't even realize it, girlfriend, but it's something that I do all the time. And I think over the years it has had a benefit. And it's literally to go ahead and like drink green tea. So in my cup right now is green tea right here. I love green tea. Green tea is so good. It tastes good. It's good for your energy levels. It's a clean source of energy. I think it's cleaner than coffee. But as it relates to your hair, it actually has antioxidants in it that can really help your hair maintain the health of it. So part of growing thicker, fine, natural hair is maintaining your hair as it emerges from the scalp. So when it emerges from the scalp, your roots, it's actually in the healthiest state that it can possibly be. And then breakage occurs because we're doing things to it that damage it. Eventually, the hair can't handle it anymore and then it just pops right off, right? But if you're using things like green tea internally, number one, there is some research that shows that green tea can help to strengthen your strands used as a rinse. So you can take it a step further and take it internally as well. You get the clean benefits of the energy piece to it, but you also get the benefit of, potentially getting this antioxidant internally as well as externally if you are using green tea as a rinse. DH, does the t-shirt give you less breakage? Absolutely. So because the t-shirt, and this is just my theory here, but because the t-shirt is soaking in the water in a way that makes it a little bit more slippery and it's not so attracting to each individual strands, it's kind of just sliding across your strands. That slip is what prevents the breakage. Whereas when you're using a towel or a microfiber towel, it's got a lot of texture to it that can attract to each individual strand and then break it on off. So, in the past, when I've changed over from using a microfiber towel or a regular towel and I switched over to like a t-shirt, I've seen so much differences. Like it's been years since I've used either one of those. And I'm never ever gonna go, I'm never going back. Never. So yeah, that's the green tea tip. I find it's really helpful if you are a fine natural who's into rinses after your deep conditioning treatment. If you've got that time, you're spa daying it on up, then definitely consider doing a green tea rinse. Now, I personally have not done a lot of green tea rinses. This is something that I found out in my research. And I thought it would be useful to share with you because I haven't talked about that in the past. And also because green tea is a part of my regular regimen as it relates to drinking it as a beverage. So maybe there's something to it. The next one on the list is to really find a protein diet. So you want to be taking protein as much as you possibly can. That's going to be good for your body because your muscles need protein. As we age, we need more protein, we need more muscles. We need to hold on to the muscles that we have because over time, our muscles start to atrophy as we get older. We become a little bit less stronger than we used to be. So, aside from the amazing benefits for your hair, of course, hair is made up by proteins, it's made up by keratin as well. You really want to be having a protein rich diet. So don't be afraid to have a large piece of salmon or a large piece of steak or chicken. I think the number that you should be aiming for is between 4 to 6 ounces for women. And I think 6 to 8, or maybe, yeah, 6 ounces for men, 4 to 6 ounces for women, depending on, your needs and your appetite and such. But leaning into those protein sources is really going to help the hair on your head that you do have and the hair that you're growing on out be a bit more sturdier in nature, less breakage, looking thicker, all those great things that we're looking for. The next tip on my list is to use hair herbs. So this one took me for a surprise. Honestly, when I heard all of the hype around certain hair herbs, I was kind of like, a little skeptical about it because I feel like there's always something on the market talking about like, use this and all your hair dreams will change or come true, stuff like that, right? But there are actually some herbs that actually work. So like for example, fenugreek. Girlfriend, I've been using fenugreek on my strands within my various different deep conditioners for I want to say the better part of maybe the last 2 years. So I started using fenugreek during the pandemic, particularly within there were some hair care companies, I can't remember off the top of my head, that was using that really, really like a lot of those products. Oh, Sultanicals, using a lot of fenugreek. So I started to buy my own fenugreek and attach it and just mix it in to other deep conditioners. And I've noticed that there's a difference there. So fenugreek is really big. Another one that really helps to thicken strands on up is horsetail and ginseng. So these are believed to support hair growth as well. You can always just purchase the particular ingredient separately and add it to whatever you have at home because you already know me, girlfriend, and I'm a big proponent of using what you have. We are not here for waste. So yeah, go ahead and try that on out on your strands the next time you're deep conditioning, or even if you're pre-pooing your hair. I think that that's a really good thing to add to it as well. I've done it and I've enjoyed success. DH, yes, I've noticed thicker hair when I've been mindful of my protein intake. It seemed to grow faster too. Absolutely. I've seen a difference too. Like I remember there was this one time where my husband really loves to make steaks and he loves to make his own little chimichurri and everything with it, right? And so there was a time when we were eating a lot of that, and you guys even noticed that I had like a growth spurt, like it was looking thicker. And so yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. Darlene, are you using the fenugreek powder or tea? Fantastic question. So the fenugreek powder is what I'm using the most to apply it to my masks. The tea, I haven't drank a lot of it. I've read that there are some mixed findings that fenugreek can sometimes have adverse effects and impacts on women of childbearing age. It's been said that like, and again, this is anecdotal in nature, but potentially one can drink tea and then force a faster labor as it relates to if somebody is pregnant. So I'm not pregnant, but that kind of pushed me away from using it as a tea internally and just using it externally instead because those studies while they haven't been proven, they haven't been disproven either, so the information is still kind of in the air. And I invite you to do your own research on that as well too, particularly as it relates to herbs, because herbs can be very potent. They can be very powerful as it relates to how it impacts your body. So if you are using those things in its most raw state, just be careful, do your research, understand what that might mean for you and your physiology so that you're not incurring any unintended effects. The next tip that I would have, girlfriend, and this is the 10th tip, is also kind of like a piggyback of something we all know. So we all know that we're supposed to, use a satin bonnet, a satin pillowcase when we sleep at night. Like that's fair. We know that, right? Something that we don't know though is that we really want to be using satin as much as we possibly can every single time we put something on our hair. So even if it is a headband, even if it is a turban, even if it is a hair wrap with a scarf, ideally you want to be making sure that the part that touches your hair is of a satin or silk type quality material. And the reason for that is because, our hair doesn't just break off while we sleep. It doesn't just break off while we're sitting, on the couch and maybe the couch is pulling moisture from our strands. It can break off at literally any point that it's touching materials that are pulling moisture away. So we love as naturals beautiful wraps. Yaya DaCosta, oh my gosh, she's gorgeous. She's always wrapping her hair on up. And she can probably get away with that because I have noticed she's got thicker strands. But as a fine natural, you really have to be aware of exactly how replicating that style might not work out the best for you. And while that's true, you are wearing a protective style. If it is over the course of the day just pulling moisture, pulling moisture, pulling moisture from your strands, that's going to have an adverse impact on your ability to thicken up your fine natural strands naturally. Exclusive Enchantment, nice name. Hello everyone. Hello to you too. So, girlfriend, if any of these tips resonated with you, if you thought that any of these tips were something that you can add to your regimen, or maybe, go a little bit more harder on in terms of consistency with your regimen, please go ahead and smash that like button. It does tell YouTube that this is a good YouTube channel, and it does help us to reach out to even more fine naturals who are really struggling with their hair journeys and could use some good tips, tricks, advice in this space. Also, girlfriend, if you haven't subscribed to Fine Natural Hair Rocks already, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, because that also really does help Fine Natural Hair Rocks out to reach more people. That's it. That's all, girlfriend. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for accommodating this random change to our schedule. We should be back and perfectly on schedule as of Friday, this upcoming Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will return for another hot topic in fine natural hair care. Thank you so much, my loves. I will see you in the next video. Bye.